I'm sorry, I'm going to speak English, despite it's not my mother language, because I cannot speak French, and in Spanish probably only a few of them will be able to understand, and I want to communicate. First of all, I want to thank Dominique Boisson for inviting me, and I'd like to congratulate him for the very important and well-organized meeting, which really, I think, is something to learn, not only you that are here, but also me. I'm learning from this kind of organization, and I think it is very important for the country, very important for the country. I'm going to show you the experience of Cuba. It's not because we have all the problems solved. Indeed, we have a lot of problems to deal with, but it's just what we have been doing in these last 50 years. So the goal is reducing the risk of disaster, and what is our experience. In 1963, the Hurricane Flora produced a very extensive destruction of the country. It was a very nasty one because it turned that way, and probably as heavy as Irma. By the way, it was another lady hurricane. Oh my God. Irma and Flora. So imagine the level of destruction that produced this hurricane, and especially because we had no preparation, we had no idea what to do. There was not any kind of organization in the country to face this tremendous problem. So there were almost 2,000 deaths, and millions, and we don't know how much of expensive in destruction. So we have to almost dedicate all the effort of the country to rebuild this area. Consequently, one of the first decisions is to create the civilian defense, to organize it, because it was not before in Cuba. And it was created in 1965 in order to protect life, infrastructure, and natural resources. So the civilian defense have two stages. In the first one, it was a time when mostly it was dedicated to solve the problems. I mean, there is a hurricane, there is an earthquake, or a landslide, anything else, and then the civil defense were organized how to deal with the people for reducing the loss and everything else. It was organized as like the protection of the people against war, against any event that may cause damage to the population and everything else. And the head of the civilian defense was the President of the Republic. It is still every president of the country. And it delegated in the Ministry of the Army. And he decided, he has a general which is in charge of the civil defense. But this structure, which is at the level of the country, it goes down into every region. So in every region, we call province and municipalities, the head of the government there is the head of the civil defense, and the army is also in charge, but the head is the president of the government. So all the resources of the government in the area are in this position to help the solving any solution, and mostly the idea is to prevent. But at that time, we were a reactive force. There is a hurricane, there we react. Then there was a second stage. In 2005, the conception was from reaction to prevention. So the civil defense will also have many programs to educate the people, to create a concept of prevention in the population, and to have a very wide network for ensuring this. For example, we have centers of hazard prevention in every municipality. I mean, this is a plan, but there are many already, and they are building more and more, which have all the communication resources to deal with a small community. So you don't have to depend upon the nation, but locally you can fix the problem, which is very important, that local population be prepared to act and have a plan and have everything already practiced. You have to make training with the population, and then you can react properly in front of any hazard. So that is in general what the civilian defense is in Cuba. And the concept is that it's much more efficient to invest in prevention than in mitigation and reconstruction. That's very clear. You have that experience here with the earthquake in 2010, and the amount of money you spend in reconstruction, I mean, is much more than if you were able to prevent with time, investing in preparation. And I think that the conference that has just been given before me by Mr. Petit, I think is very important in this point, that it shows the necessity to be prepared, to know what we do before any trouble is presented. So, there are many ways to focus how to confront a hazard. But maybe one to reduce disaster is commitment. I mean, in Cuba, the government, the law, there are law regulations to prepare the country for any hazard. So this is basic, that the government has a commitment to take care of the people. That's very important. And invest, and put and place the money and everything necessary to fix that problem. And this is not only at the level of the state, but at the level of the local populations. Another point important is that it's based in scientific criteria. What you're doing here, you are making, showing your research to create the base for reaction against the hazards. So another thing is that research is extremely important. The government has to provide some part of the support for these programs, but also from other countries. We have received a lot of support from many countries, as you do, and this is, of course, important for a country which is under development. So we need to have research, not only scientific research, that one show here, but also social research, to understand how people feel in front of the hazard, what is the experience they have, what is the knowledge they have, to have an evaluation, and also to learn if we are preparing properly the population. That's a social research which is as important as the research of the geological and other climatic values. We need to understand that this is a wise social investment. Invest in preparation of the country is wise. So we need to reduce risk by programs to minimize exposure and vulnerability. And this requires financial support by the government. All these problems that were shown now with buildings and so on, you cannot tell the people, get out of here. I mean, you have to give them some houses, some possibility. We have done this in Cuba. When we have a catastrophe and we understand that this area cannot be populated anymore because the problem will be repeated, we just build a village and transfer the people to this new area. It requires money, investment, but if you leave them to be in the place with a lot of vulnerability, you will have the same problem again and again. I know this is not easy. Even this requires a lot of social research, because sometimes people don't want to leave their own area, or they have no money to do it. So it's good to tell, but I know that it's very difficult to achieve this goal. But you have to have that in mind and be working on that line. And we have to think about a better future. And a better future is when people, the population of the country, is better prepared to cope with hazards. So in Cuba, we have a very strong effort of educating the people. We have a lot of programs, TV, radio, posters, everything, books, in the school, training, everything, because if at the end, in the moment of a dangerous event, the personal decision is very important. I can take a good decision or a bad one, personally. And if I am aware of the problems, I will take a better decision. But this is only through education. So let me give you an example of research, education, and training in Cuba. This is the landscape of Western Cuba. I love that place. Viñales, the photograph. So, research. By order of the government, and especially since 2010, when there was a decision of start to prepare a reaction to climate change, sea level rise, global warming, etc. A group was created at the national level, and every research institution is provide information to this group. That's a very important and key part. These institutions have their own goal, their own projects, but they have to share the information in order to have one goal, which is creating the background, the scientific background to the development of tools for educating the people and decisions to prepare the country against hazards. One example in which I was strongly involved is the preparation against the sea level rise by global warming. So I can tell you that more than 200 professionals were involved in this research all along the country, from all these institutions I showed you before and some more. like the Planification Institute, like the government itself, etc. So it was a very large project that started by putting together the information we had already, organizing this information from all these institutions, and then preparing a program of research. At the end, every year is given a report to the government, every year, of what we are doing, what we have achieved. I have been the major advisor of these groups ever since it was created. And an atlas with all the maps and all the recommendations is given each year, is updated each year, meaning that we are working hard, because if you have enough information, you cannot update every year. And after 5 or 6 years of work, we produced a book. This book is technical, but to be understood by the person who are decision makers at the government level in every part of the country, and the enterprise people, people that are in the head of different kind of private or government institution. So it has recommendations, and it has the experience of what has been done before and what you have to do to prevent your area from the sea level rise. It's only from sea level rise in the coastal area. I will leave this with Dominique for you, but anyway, it's in a digital way. None. Then we study the vertical tectonic movement, because if the shore up here go up or subsidence, it will modify the inundation. Then we study the tidal measurement in many places around the island, which tidal information is the summatory of tectonic movement plus sea level movement. And we found that some areas of Cuba are not, it's not the sea level rising, but it's lowering. So you cannot technically say sea level is rising. No, yes, at the level of the planet, but locally it may rise or not at different degrees and speed. Because, for example, subsidence is a factor, one of them. And we learned a lot about how the tidal works, but I will not get into it. But it's not only the sea level, the middle sea level value. You have to consider the higher extreme sea level, which happen sometime for 3 or 4 months in a year, and many other issues like that. We also investigated the quality of life, the health of corals, coastal vegetation, mangrove, especially the submarine grass, all the ecosystems which are related with the seashore, because the more healthy they are, the better protection are from the shore. So you value the level of exposure and vulnerability from the level of health of this ecosystem. And it's what we did. And then we found that all these villages are in danger and being completely drowned by the water, covered by the water, until 2011. And the level of risk is different depending on the geomorphology of the area and the population present there, because we provide the risk. Nature works as it works, but if we are in the wrong place, we create the risk. We are the guys who expose themselves to hazards. So we have all these maps at very large scale. We were 25,000 scale this project. And as this one, there are projects in landslide, in the salinity of water, I mean the water available, every issue that is important for sustaining the human life and environment. So, also the 2 year, there is a Congress, the National Congress on Disaster, which you are invited to attend. The next one is 2018. Training is also very important because we have a national exercise every 2 years to train the people what to do in case of hurricane, earthquake, whatever. So they know what to do already. And the government and the group for disaster prevention is also prepared to react in any case. And this includes teaching the people for first aids and kids especially. And these are examples of the meteor. So education. This is the last thing I want to deal with, but I think it's very important. If we don't have an education, if we don't have a population which is educated, we are in trouble. Especially if they don't know how to react in front of some hazard. If there is an earthquake, if the earth starts moving and you don't know what to do, and if the sea levels start rising and you don't know what to do, this is very important to have every person know what to do, how to react in front of any hazard. Everybody is, almost every institution in the country is involved in these things. We prepare lectures on TV on different issues, and especially hazard, vulnerability, risk, climate change, seismology, just name it. Also, are produced documentary films, multimedia, games, to teach people to react properly in these hazards. These brochures are 9 of them with all the major natural in the sense that produced by the planet itself, and also climate change hazards. So people know all of them, and especially this brochure tell you what to do in advance, maybe a year before anything can happen, and later at the moment that is happening. These have been reproduced by thousands and thousands and thousands by private organizations and also by the government. And it's spread everywhere. Also, we did the same for El Salvador in Central America. And this book is what I want to stop a moment, which is obligatory in the primary and secondary education. I think that we have to work together to produce a book like this, which will say Haiti, the ABC of disaster prevention. And the students in the school will have to study by a book like this. And then we will ensure really the future of this country like any other country, because educating the kids, the future generation, is really basic to have a good future. So there are other programs by PNUD, like this one, but I'm not going to spend more time. The point is never forget the past. Never. People have the tendency to forget the problem. It comes an earthquake, destroy the house, and they build the house in the same place by the same rules. Something Repetit was talking about, it's really very important. You need to change the rules, and you have to fix the house properly and build the house the right way. We have to go after the people all the time because they come back to the same method. It's something that is, I don't know why. People don't react properly. You have to have law, we have to have methods to force people to act properly sometimes, unfortunately. And never forget the past. Now we are preparing, by the Cuban Geological Society, an exhibition to go all around the country with named memory of past disasters. Just to show the people what has been wrong in the past, what they have dealt with in the past, so they don't forget this. And I know that in Japan they have a monument in every place where there was a big hazard. We have to replicate this and bring the kids there. I said, see, the water was up to here 20 years ago. Take this into account. So this was what I was trying to tell you. Thank you very much. I am ending with good
Je vais donc lui poser la question en anglais, mais d'abord je pose la question ici. En écoutant Manuel, à côté de vraiment la façon de faire les choses de façon très scientifique, on sent qu'il y a une grande force institutionnelle. Est-ce qu'une organisation comme celle qui est à Cuba n'est pas surtout liée à cette force institutionnelle, c'est-à-dire ce respect des institutions qui permet d'avoir une métaphore, d'avoir une chaîne de commandement. My question is, when I hear your presentation, I see that there is a very important institutional structure that explains, aside the good performance, scientific performance, the vulgarization and everything, that is the political will and this strength of the state that is explained that the system can be successful. Do you think that if you don't have this kind of strength of the power of the organization, you can have good prevention in terms of management of risk?
I think that the point in Cuba, I understand that following the example of Cuba is very difficult because it's a centralized government that create a system, and in other countries there are different parties and they don't help or support or not support the law, and then it's more complicated. The point is that the civil defense, which is the organism, will really have the power. They are the group who will ask the scientists to provide scientific information. They will ask the researchers and educators to produce educational materials. And they will work with the people to prevent that they have any damage. First, you need to have the power given by the government, by the law, a system of law which gives you that power, but also the practice. Usually, and you know this very well, the Cuban civilian defense have actually prevent that anybody die, have prevent every time more than the constructions and everything else being every time less and less damage. So you have a reputation. And if you have a reputation, then people follow you. When the civil defense say, everybody here are the boss, we are going to take you to a safe place, nobody complains. Because they know that it's true, that they will be taken care. And there will be people taking care also of the properties left behind. So that the army will just have some people to check that nobody go and steal properties. So you feel safe to go, and you will have food, medication, everything you need, and as soon as the problem is finished, you are bringing back home. So you're not left there behind. I can tell you, come home, I save you, and later you are on your own. No. You are bringing back home, and then supported to recover your house. With this reputation, you can do a lot. And this, for me, is one of the major things that the civilian defense in Cuba have achieved.